It's a little bit more better. Dun, 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 dun. Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. Welcome to our weekly Rufus Opus show. Yeah. Okay, so today I want to talk about the invisible fire. The invisible fire. Strong, the immortal fire. Strong, the invisible fire. Yeah. So I was reading through. What was I talking about here? I'm trying to remember exactly why this came up, but I don't know exactly what I was talking about or who I was talking to. But this has been a theme lately. Is trying to understand what it is that we're trying to materialize and manifest into this world around us, right? And the whole what it is we are and what it is we're doing here and all that stuff. The source of our power, the idea that I was talking about a couple weeks ago about having the ability to do strong magical things and live magical lives, and have miraculous effects happening in our regular lives on a regular basis, like being part of these epic stories, right? Epic journeys of rich experiences, something that's fun to do, that's fun to experience and fun to participate in, as a part of the whole everything, yeah, and getting what you want, being happy, being satisfied with your life, having a sense of fulfillment, having a sense of belonging and meaning, a sense of meaning, right? My son's going through a lot of philosophical questions about things, and I see him like trying to find a true source of a true valuable source of meaning in his life, right? Like what's a good thing that can provide me with a sense of belonging and value for myself and my peers and the people I care about. How can I fit into everything in a way that makes me feel good about myself, and I'm like, that sounds so much like everything we're trying to do with magic, with the occult system, the whole great work. The process of the great work is all about trying to figure out, you know, if we're not happy, why aren't we happy? And what can we do about that? What's the point of magic? The magic is so that we can use our invisible friends, our secret knowledge, our power to transform things, with our secret knowledge that we have of these hermetic mysteries, and our initiations and our empowerments and all that stuff. The point of that is to be able to get what we want, and to change things without having to go through the normal mundane ways of materializing things, right? We want these miraculous results, right? And that's like so that we can have a real life, It's like I made a post earlier about how we don't have a the there's not really advanced grimoires, that if you read through the grimoires, after a while you realize that they're all sort of the same thing. It's all basically how to draw a circle and what to put on the circle and how to make your tools and what goes on the tools and how to use the tools and what the tools do when they're all together, right? And what is that all about? It's not about eventually it's not like you get advanced ways to conjure spirits. Once you have a conjuration method down, once you understand what conjuration is, it doesn't get more complicated than that. It doesn't get better. You're not going to get a better conjuration method than the one that works. The one that works for you, that you come up with, that you find, that results in having a communication experience with an invisible intelligence. When you're communicating with another form of consciousness that isn't materialized in this world through some kind of visualization or some otherworldly sensations, once you're doing that, that's it. That's as good as it gets, and that's pretty fucking good. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but having that as your I don't know, having that experience, you know, and then thinking that like I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me how you can think that there's a more advanced form of that. You know, what you do with it once you have that down is you do magic. You build your life. You know, if you look at the here, let me just see if this is working today. Yeah, it is. All right. Go over to magical interest. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So back over on the Twilight Grotto, my favorite place. What was I talking about? Was I gonna look up? Gosh darn it! Oh crap! I forgot, you guys. That sucks. I hate when that happens. Anyway, shit. Dang it! I was right in the middle of something cool too. I wanted to talk about. Shit. Anyway, the point was you know, trying to get to this the whole miraculous experience of life. Gosh darn it, that's gonna drive me nuts. If anybody can remind me what I went over there to that page to look at, that would be great. In the chat there, I see Diana is over there, but I don't see anybody else yet. So please feel free to prompt my goddamn memory on that. But I should have just stuck to my notes the whole time. But that's what I get for going off on tangents out of the gate. But crap, what was it? Anyway. Happy Sunday. So anyway, the invisible fire is what I was trying to get to anyway. The invisible fire is what I wanted to talk about, and channeling that into our lives and transforming ourselves through this magical stuff, right? The magical act of using our secret knowledge and our secret information to make our lives better and have grimoires. We're talking about grimoires. All right, I was talking about grimoires. Oh yeah. So there's no better. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember. Thank you so much. Oh my God. All right. So anyway, there's these grimoires that we have, right? They're not. There are some really great ones. You know, the Key of Solomon is a great grimoire. You know, and it has like all this stuff in it. About how to like conjure all these spirits. You know, and it's got all these lists of spirits. And these pinnacles and stuff and the days of the week and all this stuff, you know, and all these different grimoires have all these different lists of spirits in them, and each one has methods of getting in touch with these spirits. But basically, once you have a system of getting in touch with these spirits, you understand that the spirit world is basically arranged according to all of these let's see, it's under miscellaneous, under all of these different let's see, where is it? Here it is, the celestial hierarchies. So like once you understand that all of these different spiritual grimoires have these structures of celestial hierarchies, like based on the spheres of the planets or spheres of manifestation, or based on their feudal hierarchies and ranks of government at the time. You know, we've got here we've got the celestial hierarchies, the angels of Dionysius the Areopagite, right? And it's like all this, basically there's like these heavens and there's these choirs of angels, and each angel answers to an archangel. Each archangel has a choir of angels under him, right? And then if you go back over to the Lemegeton and the Lesser Key of Solomon, right? And you get into the demons on the other side of the fence, right? You got the Goetia, and in here you've got all these marquises and presidents, right? And all these different levels of feudal lords, right? This feudal system of hierarchy, right? Either way, it's a list of spirits, names and seals, methods of conjuring them, and their ranks in this system, right? And this method of getting in touch with them through these connections that you have and this hidden knowledge that you have. All these different systems, all these different grimoires present the same thing. And to what end? To what end, right? So like there's not the Almadel isn't better than the Armadel, right? It's not like you can go through any of these here on Esoteric Archives, if you go through any of these grimoires, if you try to understand what it is they're trying to teach you, if you understand that they're trying to teach you a method of connecting to our invisible friends to obtain your desires so that you can have a better experience of life, right? That's basically what a grimoire is for, right? They're all going to teach you that. They're all going to have different methods of doing that. And once you see enough of them, you see that they have certain other things in common. They're trying to teach the same thing in different ways. Right, and once you piece that together and you figured it out, then you start doing what these grimoires are for, right? And this is what they're for, right? This is, let's go back to the Lemegeton, right? It says right here in the Key of Solomon and the Goetia, in the middle of this circle here, sorry if you're getting seasick here, here, right? In the middle of the circle, what's the word there? Meister, right? Meister. It's the master. The point of the Goetic magic, the point of the transformation of the magician through the great work, once you stand in the center of this universe that's represented by this whole hierarchy of the spheres, you've got the 10 spheres from the Kabbalistic heavens here represented on this circle around you, and you're standing in the middle of it, in the middle of the 4 lords of the 4 corners of the earth, and you're standing in the middle, and you're the master because you understand your place in all of this. You're the master. These systems of magic, these grimoires, are methods of putting you in a position of mastery in relation to everything else. That's all the grimoires are for, right? Oh, that's all, right? Oh, that's all. No big deal. And it's not that big of a deal, really. It's the grammar. It's the grammar of the trivium, the 3 parts of the classical educational model. It's the grammar, the logic, and the rhetoric, right? And in the grammar phase, you learn the pieces and the parts, and that's what the conjuration grammars are for. They teach you the pieces and the parts to communicate with our invisible friends, okay? And based on your level of understanding of your mastery of your location in this circle, that's going to directly impact your relationship with these other spirits. One of the reasons I'm always on about this whole we're all connected to everything and we're all one big thing. There's this one big eye that's looking out through all of us all the time. The reason I'm all into that all the time is because I focus on that because it's an expression without a lot of baggage around it. It's not too serious, but it expresses the truth in a very clear way, right? And why do I like clarity things? Like, why am I always trying to illuminate things and make it clear? It's because of this invisible fire, which brings us to the actual topic for today's show, which is the invisible fire. Okay, so the point of this little tangent here with the grimoires, it's because the master is someone who understands, in my opinion, this is all Rufus Opus's illuminated take on existence. Whether or not I'm illuminated or not, it's open to debate for sure. But for sure, the point of all these grimoires is to make you the king, what I called the king in the 7 Spheres book, right? It was about putting yourself in the center of your universe and understanding that you are the focal point of your experience. You're the fulcrum between the above and the below, and you're expressing into this existence everything that you're experiencing, right? And this goes into that whole I'm not talking about like I don't want anybody to feel like I'm blaming the victim here. If you're having a bad time of things, I understand. It ain't all you. I'm not saying this is just we vibe everything into being according to our will. I do believe we can get to a point where we vibe most of it into being according to our will, and I think that's what initiation is for. But what are we trying to express? What are we trying to will into being with our magic? Why do we have these desires for these results? Where is it coming from? Right? Why do we want things? Why do we want money? You know, to be happy, right? Why do we want to be happy? You know, why do we want? Why are we wanting all this stuff? Where's it coming from? Right? It's part of why we become where'd I go? Here it is. It's why we become the master, right? It's so that we can actually express that why we're here. We're here to become that master, to understand and express that light, that invisible light that comes through us into this world around us. And it's the secret of the whole Orphic stuff that I'm all into with the Dermani manuscript is that we're all part of that light. That light is encapsulated in our cells, that it's the electricity that flows through our DNA or our mitochondria. You know, it's that transformation of sunlight into feelings and thoughts and art and science and opinions about politics. You know, all that stuff comes from this transformation of light into this strange conscious interaction with itself. Like, how does that happen? You know, what's going on? Why? You know, that's the question that always is driving me. And also not just that, but like, there's a sense of longing, right? Of loneliness that we carry around, that I talk about every once in a while. And if you're ever going through the dark night of the soul, you're approaching a very unique, in my opinion, a very unique aspect of the truth, which is sorrowful in the way that Saturn and Bina are sorrowful in our traditions of whatever ceremonial magic, if you're into all that stuff. That sorrowful aspect of being alone and separate, you know. I was reading the other day or watching some video about it, and there's this it's called the Andromeda paradox or something, and this basically, because we're in motion, you know, and at different speeds, we're not experiencing time at the same rate. Right? It's just not possible for us to do that. So we're always, in a way, we're always on our own. And I was trying to explain to somebody what their magical sphere is, you know, like what your sphere as a magician is. And it's basically everything you can see. You know, everything you can see from horizon to horizon, it's a circle, right? You can see 360 degrees around you, 360 degrees up and around you, you know, imaginary. I mean, you can't see through the ground, but you know what I mean? You can see everything you can see. That's your sphere. Everything you can change with your voice. Everybody whose opinion you can influence. You know, every job that you do that changes the world. Every task, every purchase you make, right? Everything you do is your sphere as a magician, your sphere of influence as a mote of consciousness, as a drop of the ocean. You are a drop, right? And in your drop, you have this sphere of influence, and that's your world. That's your kingdom. You know, the reason you go through these 7 sphere initiations is so that you can transform your ability to express your desired outcome into everything you see, hear, feel, touch, care about, the other people around you, right? You know, and that gives you something to do, right? But it doesn't really necessarily give you connection, right? Because as you grow as a human being, you realize that you can't grow for other people, you know, and it's not your business, right? If you really learn to respect one another and love one another, you learn to be more hands-off and offer support and protection when you can, when it's appropriate or needed, right, or necessary. But for the most part, you just stay out of the way and let people live their lives, you know, and live your own life. Focus on your own life so that you can be happy, so that you're in a position to make other people happy, and not in a selfish way. There's this thing that people say, like, I talk about how, you pursue your pleasure and your own happiness, and you're going to make the world a better place. And they're like, oh, well, if everybody did that, well, then everybody's going to be an Elon Musk. And I'm not, no, I'm talking about get enlightened, get aware, get initiated, deal with your shadow work, grow up a little bit. This isn't hard. I mean, it's hard, don't get me wrong, but it's doable. You endure it and you get through it, and you're not an evil, twisted bastard anymore. You stop being mean to people. You stop thinking somebody's going to turn into an a-hole because four other people that look like them that are a-holes. You get over that crap. You learn to appreciate each other as a manifestation of the same source. And you see past a lot of this crap. But you also see where people are at, and you try not to step on their boundaries, because you can't force change. You can't make people smarter. You can't make yourself smarter. We can make ourselves more aware of things. We can learn more information. We can make more connections between things. Right? But there's limits to how much we can understand and put together at any one given time. Sorry. And that's okay. It's not supposed to be more than what we can do. We can't always succeed at everything. You can do everything right and still fail. It happens. It's okay. It's not like I don't know how to put it. You don't have to necessarily win the game to succeed in the mission, right? Sometimes part of the process is getting that experience so that you can overcome it later. I don't know how to put that in a nice way. It kind of sucks. But through suffering comes wisdom, and people don't want to suffer to get wisdom. People want to have wisdom without suffering, but they don't, it doesn't work that way, and a lot of people who want, anyway, in my opinion, I've got some judgments. I won't get into it. Yeah, but to really express our light, right, we have to actually let other people express theirs, and have to not get in the way of that. And when you're focusing on your own light, you find that you are automatically helping other people, and we don't turn into evil people, because we're going through the transformation process of the great work, and it makes you into a healthy specimen of a human being. And people who say, well, I'm not a healthy specimen. No, you're not. You're not, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Stop doing that. You're part of the problem that you complain about all the time. And the only person that can stop you is you. It's the only person that ever stopped me from doing anything was me. And I don't mean obviously the police stopped me from doing things that I would rather do that are probably not healthy for other people, right? Which is fine. I can appreciate and respect those boundaries sometimes. But when it comes to stopping me from achieving my potential, it's almost always been me most of the time. It's because I don't want to go through the processes necessary for the most part. And that's just me. That's on me, And also, the person that stopped me from harming myself has always been me, right? It's always... Anyway, point being, we're the most powerful person in our lives, and we're not going to turn into some kind of monster by doing the great work. It really does make us into healthier specimens. Anyway, back to the Immortal Fire. I actually have a whole bunch of stuff planned for this that I haven't gotten to yet. Anaximenes is I want to start with Anaximenes, or I have no idea how to say these words, by the way. I read them. There's this guy Anaximenes who proposed that the first principle from which all arose was air, right? And this air was this essence of everything, and this essence of everything was like the source of everything in his mind. And he said that out of air, air had to be the core element of everything, because fire is basically just, if you take air and purify it and rarefy it, then basically that air becomes fire, right? Or if you take and you cool it down, it becomes clouds or water. And obviously stone is just dense water, right? So it's like he had this whole theory of how, and basically it's fluid dynamics if you think about it. But he said everything that is air, right? And then later on, Heraclitus goes on. He's pretty famous for saying that all that is fire. And he had kind of thought about it, and he said it wasn't just the fire itself, the element. He's talking about the process of burning, and everything that is not elemental in the way that air is elemental, but is fire in the way that fire is burning. Okay, so if you think about this, these are the pre-Socratic sources of this idea that everything is air, right? Zeus the head, Zeus the middle, Zeus the all in all is this Orphic interpretation of this pre-Socratic idea that everything is one. And that pre-Socratic idea is based on the idea that everything is air or fire, right? These are our core, oldest sources for this, right? And here, I'll even show you. I got a web page for this. Heraclitus. So here's Heraclitus. This is from fragment 30 of whatever DK 30 is. And he says basically, this world which is the same for all, no one of gods or men has made, but it always was, is, and will be an ever-living fire, which with measures of it kindling and measures going out. So like basically he's saying everything it is fire, and some of it's burning and some of it's going out, and it's either like catching on fire or it's on its way out of not catching on fire. So it's either emanating or disappearing, right? So go back to waxing and the waning of the moon, right? Later on we have a much more nuanced and understanding of things. We have 7 spheres now, not just 4 elements, but 7 spheres. Anyway, not that we're better than Heraclitus, but I think my understanding's better than his, because I have a better method of doing things than I have any record of him having. So I don't know what he did though. Maybe he had a really great magic system too, but he didn't write it down. So if he did, I don't see it. I haven't seen it yet. But anyway, Heraclitus believed that everything was fire, but not just fire, but the process of burning. So as ideas were made to manifest, they became, and then they went out, and then they unmanifested. So matter itself was the burning of the ideas of God, right? Our existence is the burning of this idea, right? This idea. And this idea is light. It's light. It's in the aethers. It's this scintillating intellect that descends upon the firmament, and that scintillating intellect is Zeus's lightning bolt. So when you read about Zeus who rules through the lightning bolt, they're talking about in the sky. It's his name is Zeus, right? And it means they say sky dad, right? It's not sky dad. It's light sky, skylight, lightning. We call it lightning, right? We're like, oh, he's the lightning bolt. It's not. It's the light of sky and father, right? And father is because he's the progenitor, the genitor of all. When you get into the Orphism, he's the source. He's the root of all. And that's why he's father. But it's not because he's the sky daddy with the beard and everything. That's all. That's symbolic, sure, but it's not about that. Not when you get past all the social construct around it. It's just about the source of everything, right? Zeus, but it's just sorry. It's that. Right, but it's the expression of it being consumed, right? It's not permanent. It's in action, and it's consumable, and it's being consumed, and that is our experience. And that light that comes down is intellect, is awareness, is consciousness, right? It's this light that's coming out of my little eye in the pyramid thing here, right? You know, where is it? Let me just turn that off. This guy, right? That little light that's coming out, that's that scintillating light that comes down into the aethers. And that's what Zeus is. He's the skylight. Lightning itself is the manifestation. When it says that Zeus rules through the shining bolt, it's not talking about Zeus as ruling through the power of the lightning bolt. He's talking about through the enlightening of the air through which we live and breathe, the fire that is the ongoing manifestation of things that Heraclitus is talking about, right? That's what they're talking about when they say that Zeus rules through the shining bolt. It's not, I'm the sky god and I'm going to shoot you with lightning. You know, it's not the lightning god. He is the lightning god. He's the god of enlightening. But that enlightening is the light of consciousness, of awareness itself, right? And that's what the invisible fire is. And it's manifesting in you through everything that you can see as a magician, right? And the point of this great work that we do is to be initiated into each of these 7 spheres so that we can get out of the way of that. And what does it look like in our day-to-day lives when we experience that, right? It's a moment of awe. It's a moment of silence. We're not doing it on purpose. I was talking to a friend / client / co-magician, whatever, and she was telling me about how she had this experience. She had conjured a spirit and asked for a result and found herself in a situation where she was in a social setting where she said something and someone else responded as if in cue, and she was able to respond, and it was just like everybody was working together as if it was in a scene out of a play, and everybody was laughing and having a good time, and then everybody just cracked up like it was scripted, you know, almost like a TV show, you know, and nobody was doing it on purpose. Everybody was in the moment, and everybody was just being themselves. And everybody was just able to respond in harmony. And it was just a moment where she felt like it was the fulfillment of what she was looking for when she'd conjured that spirit, right? And what she was drawing, what we were talking about, that she actually drew my attention to, was how in that moment she was out of the way and she was silent. And that's what we're trying to get to with this whole understanding of being that invisible fire in the moment, right? When it's through the shining bolt that Zeus rules this world, it's through our consciousness, our conscious understanding of it. All right. Now I've jumped ahead in my notes here, but I skipped over a little bit. Let me take it up a notch, though, okay? So out a notch, maybe, and put it back into some words here. All right, so this is Cleanthes hymn to Zeus. Okay, this is a Stoic interpretation of this light of Zeus, okay? Let me go back here. So I started with... Well, I started with grimoires, but anyway, I started with Anaximenes, and then Heraclitus, right? Anaximenes said it was all air. Heraclitus said it was all fire. So it was not just the essence of things being; it was also the essence of things being on fire and being expressed and being consumed as it was expressed, and that light is also the light of consciousness and the expression of that light of consciousness, right? So that was the pre-Socratics, right? That was Anaximenes of Miletus, the 6th century BCE. Heraclitus was 500 BCE. And then Cleanthes was the Stoics, and they were... Let's see. Can I embiggen that? I can't embiggen that. I can't see my notes. I'm sorry, they're too small. Anyway, the Stoics came along after. Oh, hang on just a second. I don't want to say the wrong thing and then have somebody comment on it in the notes, frankly. Not that anybody does that anymore, but back in my day, people used to really worry about that kind of thing and make people's lives hell. And I was one of them. That's probably one of the worst. All right, so Anaximenes was around 550 BC. Heraclitus was around 500 BC. Derveni, okay, so the Derveni manuscript was 400 BC. That's where sort of my understanding of the mysteries is wrapped around this Derveni manuscript, Orphic initiatory script thing that they found that dates itself back to 450 BC. So when I talk about the Derveni manuscript, I'm talking about this one Orphic interpretation of existence that seems to match everything that I believe that I have found through my whole Hermetic process of initiation and whatnot, right? Basically that as you progress through the spheres and you get through the 8th sphere and you start to go through the whole unification process that they talk about in ceremonial magic, you eventually go through a transformation where you understand that we're all part of the whole thing. All right, and all this stuff, it turns out, surprise, surprise, Robert Anton Wilson spelled it all out, and I learned it when I was 16. It sounded just like what I thought, and then almost 40 years later, 30 years later, it took almost 30 years for me to be able to actually integrate that in a way that was meaningful, I think. But I don't know. I mean, I think I'm still integrating it, so still figuring it out. But yeah. But anyway, point is that this is a whole expression of this core philosophy that's been with us way back before I ever started talking about it, or Robert Anton Wilson talked about it. Okay, this is way before anybody that we know of had anything to say about it. When the Christians and the Neoplatonists came along and perverted the truth in ways that have resulted in, I think, a lot of corruption in our society and our day-to-day experience of existence, I think you lose sight of this core truth that everything was one thing. You know, even Christianity has to refer to this hymn of Cleanthes that I was going to refer to over here. So this hymn is actually referred to in Acts. Paul says, even your own poets say, in whom we live and breathe and have our being, right? And he's referring to this hymn of Cleanthes, and it's a Stoic text from after the Derveni manuscripts, like around 300 BC, and it says, and this is how the Stoics had sort of started to interpret it. So like, we had the original, everything is air, and then everything is fire, and sort of this intellect is like in everything. And then by the time it gets to the Derveni manuscript, that intellect has become all of us and is everything and is experiencing everything. And then by the time it gets to the Stoics here, it starts to have more, like they have this, like if you read Stoicism, like I don't like Stoicism because it's very, you should just do what you're told, accept your lot in life and don't bother. And that's not magical. Okay, Stoics are not magicians. I mean, magicians can be stoical, and I understand that because you have to accept some things in life and you don't have to like it. And Stoicism helps. But Stoicism at the core is not magical because it doesn't accept that you are supposed to transform things, right? And it shows in this particular hymn. But at the same time, you can still see that invisible fire that was free and expressed freely at the time of Anaximenes, and shit. God damn it. This is what I get for scrolling down in my notes. Yes, Heraclitus and Anaximenes. Anaxamanin. I should look up how to actually pronounce that. Anyway, so anyway, the actual the hymn, the Greek text is there. This is the hymn of Cleanthes. I don't know who the translator of this is. I don't know who they are. Like Blakely or something. Blakeney. I can't find a. I found some different references to it, but this is the one that I could find on the internet. So it is what it is. All right, so this is how they express it. And if you've done the Orphic hymn to Jupiter with me before, or in other unrelated things, if you've recited it in your worship of Zeus, listen to this with the idea of that hymn in mind, right? All right, and also with the idea that we're referring not to Zeus, the king of the gods. All right, not that Zeus, but the immortal light, okay? And that's the Zeus that they're referring to. Think of it that way as you read the hymn. All right. Most glorious of immortals, mighty God, invoked by many a name, O sovereign king, of universal nature piloting this world in harmony with law, all hail. Thee it is meet that mortals should invoke, for we thine offspring are, and soul of all created beings that live and move on earth, receive from thee the image of the One. Therefore I praise thee, and shall hymn thy power unceasingly. You know, I don't like this translation because that's not the way I read it before, and it was more meaningful the other way. Let me see if I can find a different translation here. All right. Here. I don't have something I could share with you, but you can follow along sort of over here and sort of translate it into what I'm reading if you want. All right. Most glorious of immortals, mighty God, invoked by many names, all-powerful Zeus, the ruler of nature, guiding all by law, hail, for it is right that all mortals should call upon you, for we are your offspring. All beings that live and move upon the earth bear your likeness alone, since we alone have the power of speech. Therefore will I praise you and hymn your might forever. The whole universe that rolls around the earth obeys you, whithersoever you lead it, and willingly submits to your law. So great is the power you hold in your invincible hands, the double-edged, fiery, everlasting thunderbolt. Under its stroke all nature quivers. By it you direct the universal reason, which pervades all things, mingling itself with the greater and the lesser lights alike, so that through it all beings become one great family, obedient forever to your eternal word. And this, O God supreme, you direct by justice, which none of the wicked can evade or escape, but all must bear their due portion. Nevertheless, the foolish among mortals flee from it, wretched, ever desiring to possess that which is not ordained, yet never discerning the universal law of God's governance, which if they obeyed it, would make their lives noble. Instead, they rush heedlessly each to his own fate, some following glory, others gain, still others wanton pleasure, yet they all seek what is not in harmony with you. But do you, O Zeus, all-giver, cloud ruler, thunder wielder, protect mankind from this folly. Scatter it from their souls, grant them to attain the wisdom through which you govern all things in justice, so that being honored we may in turn honor you, singing unceasing hymns of praise to your works, for there is no greater privilege for mortals or gods than to celebrate forever the universal law. Right? The universal law. Right? So, Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, was the one writing about how everybody should celebrate the universal law. Yeah, and kind of fuck that is sort of my opinion. But the universal law that they're talking about is not this law of humans and or divine law, or like the biblical law that you're going to go to hell for breaking. You know, it's not that law. It's this expression of the light. That is the light that he rules with. He rules with the all-pervading rational mind that is expressed through our desires and our wants and our needs and our pure impulses to create an experience in this world. That is the lightning bolt, the will of God, the law of God that is supposed to be manifested. And it's the darkening of that, that the people that are what is it? None of the wicked can evade or escape, but all must bear their due portion. The foolish among mortals flee from it, wretched, ever desiring to possess what is not ordained. Wanting what is not ordained, right? They're not talking about like, they're not talking about being happy with what you're given in life. All right, not in my opinion. And maybe the Stoics are, because the Stoics are a little warped about this stuff, and that's what I'm talking about. They have too much domineering influence over this, and it's not like that. In my experience of it, the will of God, the will of Zeus that manifests itself through us, this strong immortal fire that we're talking about here, this fire that manifests through us is freeing and liberating, and is not about dominating you, but is freeing you to do what you're actually here to do. And the things that you really want when you're not being guided by your corrupted nature, and corrupted, I'm talking about by people who hurt you this lifetime, who have influenced your way of expressing things that now causes harm to yourself and others. Okay, all these people we see hurting each other, all these ICE agents, all these people who are voting red or trying to stick it to the libs, or who are just waiting to throw bricks at the ICE agents, all these people who are extreme about all this crap, they're hurting, all of them. That's not normal. That's not what we're here to do. That's not what we would be doing if everybody did the great work, man. If we all just got along, right? And I'm not saying that that's a realistic expectation, but I'm just saying that world out there is the corrupt world. It's the world of corruption. Those are the molested people who have not gone to therapy. Those are the people who've been through it, who have not dealt with it, yet. Or who are dealing with it in the worst possible ways by creating more chaos, right? That's what we're here to stop. That's what we who are here of the light, who are aware of this invisible fire that we're a part of, we're here to stop that stuff by expressing the other side of things, the positive side of things, the healthy, healing side of things, to our wealth and our health and our necessary wealth, our health first, right? Our mental health, our heart health, our spiritual health, our spiritual empowerment. The reason I'm like, you guys should do the 7 spheres initiations is because it's empowering and it's cleansing and it cleans us out of all that crap so that we can be more clear in our expression of that, and the more you pursue your own expression of that light, your own understanding of it through meditation and contemplation and chanting and imagination and analysis of your imagination, right? A little bit of time talking to other people about what you think about in therapy, for example, with trained professionals who are objective on purpose. It helps a lot, to keep things in perspective, so that when you go to the circle and you're going to the magic circle and you're the master in the middle of it, you can conduct the forces of the 10 spheres that are on the circle, on the edge of the circle, in harmony with everything. You can conduct all that stuff because you're that light that's being expressed into this material world to be combusted in the moment, to be consumed in the expression and the experience of it, and the waxing and the waning of it, right? That's what we're here to do with our magical circles, right? That's what that's for. So where you can be the master in the center of it, directing, just like that crazy little mouse in the Sorcerer's Apprentice from, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, we are that immortal fire. Okay, this is why. Um, anyway, let's see. Zeus, the all-pervading divine fire, the intelligent fire who breathes through the cosmos. Yeah. So the hymn to Cleanthes was talking about that expression of that divine fire, right? And that divine fire that becomes the will of God and the law of God, or whatever, however you want to put it. But he doesn't. He's lost that pure freedom that comes with the divine fire that consumes all of the corruption, right? When you're not a corrupted candle wick, whatever, you're not going to have a lot of smoke. You're not going to have a lot of pollution that comes out of you. You're going to burn, and it's going to be light. Light's going to shine, and you don't burn. It's the light coming through. It's not even about us, Let's see. So, let's see. Cleanthes writes later in the same hymn, through all the universe you move, and all obey your will, and willingly submit to your law, the unbreakable word. Oh, yeah. So he talks about how because we're the only beings that are made in his image who can speak about this entity, then therefore we shall speak about this entity, right? That whole thing where it's talking about speaking. Here, let me pull it up. All beings that live and move upon the earth bear your likeness. We are your offspring. Of all beings that live upon the earth, bear your likeness alone, since we alone have the power of speech. Anyway, basically, we bear his likeness alone because we can communicate things. Right? That's where the corpus hermeticum gets its, the logos is reflected in the human beings being able to speak things into being, where the creator gods were able to speak things into being, right? So this thing, right? This power of speech that he's like, and then we will, of course, therefore will I praise you and him your might forever, right? What is he talking about there? He's talking about, I'm going to praise and worship you. What does that even mean? It's giving attention to that divine will that's being expressed through us. It's that divine light that is in that moment that we're out of the way of, that when everything's going according to the harmony that we've created from that master's square in the center of the circle, when everything is going that way, we're not interfering with it. We're manifesting things and materializing things and interacting with things without thinking about what our lines are, without thinking about what we have to say to get to the point next, and it's without being encumbered by doubt, by fear. I talk about the metis, the metis feeling that you get. There's a interpretation of the word metis in Greek that means the confidence that comes from just an incredible just self-confidence, this overwhelming ability to have things go your way, just knowing that it's going to work. It's part of what we get when we see our magic succeed over and over again. We were talking to someone last night, and my wife was telling them this story about something that happened, and I could just see his eyes getting wider and wider, and just like he didn't know what to expect next by the end of it, because it was a wild story, and it's like our normal life, there's like spirits, there's like animals appearing out of nowhere, and like, and there's like this third party person is confirming things, and then out of nowhere a teacher appears to provide an insight that frames the entire experience, and we're just telling him about this whole thing because, like, I don't know why we were telling him about it, but it just kind of, he was just like, I just watched him go, and just like sort of like, and that's just normal life, it's just how it is sometimes with us. And it's not because we have super magical lives. It's not like that. We're just doing what we like, and this is the consequence of it. It's not we're not pursuing occult experiences for occult experiences sake. I used to say I'm going to do magic just because I love how magic feels, and I love how magic feels. But the reason I love how magic feels is not because I'm doing magic. It's because magic is creating life. It's creating my life. And I love to create my life now. I'm not loving the act of creating. It's not that. It's creating that I love. And I use magic to do that. And that's what magic is there for. It's how we interact with it. It's what those seals are for, right? It's what these speeches are for when we say the speeches. The speeches are so important. That's why I'm reading this hymn, is because the hymn gives us a way to express this invisible fire in language, in the way that, we project onto it how it expressed us, right? Through language, through the logos, through the whole, as I speak, so shall it be, abracadabra, It's the expression of that invisible fire in words, in symbol sets. Every morning when I do our daily chant, right? I do this thing where, I read through the Orphic Hymn of the day, and I show the seals of the archangel and the four spirits of it, because we're part of it every day, and we're part of that chain of manifestation. Those are the symbols and the seals and the names that we use to communicate those aspects, those qualities of existence into being, through our speaking of their names and resonating with their vibrations, by communicating with them and giving their existence a vibration in our lives on a regular basis every day. We're creating a resonance with the power of the planet. It's something that's profoundly changed my understanding of my experiences on a regular basis now, right? And it's changed a lot of things. It's very useful. I'm enjoying it very much. Let's see. I don't want to get into all that right now. So basically, yeah. So when Cleanthes says Zeus it rules through the shining bolt, he's describing the invisible fire as the governing intelligence of the universe. Yeah. So that was I think I made that point earlier about how it is that light that shines through is that light of Zeus. Yeah. So, but the end part, where he wraps things up, where we're going to celebrate forever the universal law, it's not a sentence. We are not sentenced to fate. Okay, we are not at the mercy of fate. We are the expression of fate, and the expression of fate is going to be found most cleanly in the pure, active being, the burning of our existence, right? If you look at air, the air of Anaximenes' take on things, and the fire of Heraclitus's things, air was just being there, and he said, oh, if it's purified enough, then it becomes fire. And Heraclitus said, no, actually, it's that consumption, it's the burning of it that is the core of things. The core of existence is not this existence of air beforehand. It's the burning of it in the moment, right? And that burning of it is our expression of things. It's the air coming out, the vibrations going into this world, the reflection of our words being heard and responded to by everything around us as the vibrations are received and responded to, creating their own vibrations. It's just speaking. It's just talking out loud. We can't help but do it every time we talk to each other, right? Every time we speak these words and the secret symbols and the secret names, that's what gives us the power to resonate these things a little bit more resonantly, if that's a word. But the point of all that magic is to transform everything that blocks us from expressing that light into something that helps us express that light. And what we find when we get rid of all the things that have stopped us from being ourselves is that we were exactly what we were the whole time, in ways that it's really hard to explain. I am more myself. I am more the self that began to emerge into my existence when I was an infant, right? Like, I have pictures of myself, and I can see myself like as a baby, and I can see myself a little bit older, and I can see what's changed. And I imagine, anyway, that I can remember that transformation process, right? Because I've been through so many at this point in my life. I know how it must have felt. At the very least, I can imagine. And I can see there's an emergence of something that was already there, and genetically, we are the continuation of that which came before us. Our ancestors are in our DNA, right? Our ancestors are with us every step of the way. They predispose us to continue to manifest the things that they manifested, expressing their biological knowledge and experiences into our lives, right? That's just genetics, right? And then there's their culture, then there's their expectations, then there's personalities, right? All that other stuff. Anyway, we're equally valuable and we're equally powerful to all of that other stuff, Let's see. So, all right. The point of the magic is to transform the self. Anyway, the key to all this stuff goes back to the air. Okay, the reason that we have all of our breathing techniques and meditation is to get you familiarized with the process of breathing. Because when you take things in and you breathe things out, you're expressing the very fundamental core essence of what this air and this fire and this light and this consciousness is doing. Okay, you're breathing out and you're breathing in. You're looking out, you're seeing in. You're speaking out, you're experiencing your life. Okay, you're in and you're out, your breath. All right, I didn't get into how every word that we have for spirit is can be almost every word can go back to breath. Everything like ruach and pneuma and soul and psyche and neshama and pneuma. Did I ever say pneuma? Anyway, all of our different words for spirit, ghost, everything goes back to the word for air. Right? The essence of what we think of our invisible intelligences are that help us is aerial spirits. Angels are announcers. The key word of spiritus is breath. The key word of anima and animus, or the source words, are all breath. It all goes down to air or breath or wind. The Ruach Elohim is the breath of God. It's breath, it's that air. That's the spiritual essence, but it's that air on fire that is our actual experience, our actual existence, right? And it's that air coming in and out, being heated up and transformed and translated into our cells, into our cellular structure, that makes it an experience. Okay, so the key to all of our magic, when we get into this whole meditational concept that lets us sort of free ourselves, I guess, from a lot of constraints that can keep us from expressing this light, it boils down to getting out of the way, a lot of it, getting rid of all the stuff that keeps us from being able to get out of the way, and then getting out of the way, and then letting it just be through what you're doing without stopping what you're doing. And it's hard to explain, but it's it's real easy to understand and appreciate when you're in the moment. It really does just boil down to relaxing and being present without being ignorant. You're not a zombie. You're not like waiting for something else to move you. You're not waiting. Any part of you that would be waiting would be like getting in the way. You're doing, but you're not like worried about it. And it's not like you stop wanting. You're still doing what you want. But that's just it. You're just doing what you want. You're not in the way of it. And you can trust what you want not to harm anybody else, because your desires have been fixed. And you got to trust that happens. A lot of people don't trust that because they don't trust themselves. And that's what it boils down to. When people are like, well, what about Elon Musk? He doesn't want, if he did everything he wanted, and he's doing everything he wants, and yeah, it's evil. A lot of what he wants is evil. Evil people are going to want to do evil things, and they're going to do them. They're doing it anyway. It doesn't change if they believe what I'm saying or not. But if they believe what I'm saying and they actually do these initiations, they're not going to want to do those things anymore. That's the power of the Hermetic path. That's what the great work is supposed to do, is to transform the negative into something good. And why? Why? So that we can cleanly express this light without getting in the way of it. So we can reap the rewards, so we can have our health and our necessary wealth, our prosperity. And I'm not talking about always being happy. I'm talking about always being in tune with it and being okay with it, because you're aware of it. You're aware of what's going on, and you're not surprised by it, and you're not like bored with it. You're creating it, and it's not always going to be great. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to work exactly the way you expect it to, and it's not supposed to. Right? You're not the all thing. You're an aspect of it. You're a drop of the ocean, and every drop contains the ocean, but you're a part of it too. Zeus the head, Zeus the middle, Zeus the all in all. We're part of the middle, and we don't know everything, but we're part of everything. And if we can be a part of that and consciously manifest that, in tune with it, then we're not subject to it. We're riding it. We're writing it, and we're participating in it as an aware part of it rather than an ignorant victim of it, right? And your intentions become to experience it fully rather than to pursue something that somebody told you should instead. Hopefully we end up with a place of like benevolent anarchy. That would be like ideal, where we're all like ideally benevolently anarchistic, and we're like wise enough to somehow not be selfish and mean to everybody. And it's pretty idealistic, but why not? Why not do the impossible things? Let's see. Yeah, so that's basically it. All right, guys, that's all I have. I hope you are all having a great... does one have to literally have to stand in this circle, or one can do so figuratively? Yes, that was from Esoteric Archives. Yep. All right, that's it for today. I'm going to hop off. I need to go and get ready for work. I will talk to you all next week, though. I will see you tomorrow morning if you're part of the